guys, and welcome back to the Rugby Abroad podcast for episode 21. Today features Scott Lyle, a young English fullback plying his trade in the Italian top 10 with Padova. A really interesting conversation and a look into the future of European rugby. Don't forget you can find the new Rugby Abroad merchandise at rugbyabroad.com/shop. Hit subscribe on YouTube and follow us on all our socials for new episodes. So wherever you are, it's time to sit back and enjoy today's episode. Welcome back, guys, to the Rugby Abroad podcast for episode 21. He's not really worn that number many times on his back, but it is Scott Lyle with me today. We crossed paths in Italy when I moved out just before COVID to San Donar, who were in the top league, the top 12 at the time. It's now been reduced to the top 10, but Scott moved on. He stayed in Italy. He's now playing with the recent champions of Italy, Padova. Scott, how's it going, mate? Great to have you on the pod.
Good to be here, mate. Very good to be here.
How's your year been since winning the title with Padova? I think it was a long time coming. It's been a couple. Was it your second year last season, and you managed to do it?
Yeah. So first year got to the final. Denied in the last play by a TMO decision, which was, that was difficult to take, but
controversial one, was it?
Slightly, yeah, but I don't know if you've got enough time in the meeting for me to discuss that one, but anyway, same team the year after, and it was nice to get the win over them. So yeah, glad that we managed to do that.
Brilliant. And who was the team?
Rovigo.
It was Rovigo. We've had a couple of guys on recently that have played for Rovigo. Had Perry Parker on, who won the Scudetto with them a few years back, and then I did a Spanish episode with a lad called Nicolas Coronel, who I don't know if you might have played against him actually in that first final.
I think so, yeah. So they got possibly,
They got the better of you that time. What's your, just for the listeners, your main playing position?
Fullback, but can cover 10 if I needed to.
Can cover 10 if you needed to. And you're a goal kicker, that's right? Is that right?
Yes. Yeah, I do my best.
Does that mean you're a very high percentage?
A bit lower than yours, but up there.
Still up there with some of the best. I think you were the top scorer in the league, if I'm not wrong, last year in the Italian top 10. Am I right?
That was only in the semi-finals because I had a bit of an injury, so I missed 6 or 7 games. But towards the end of the season,
What did you do?
I had a hamstring tendon problem.
Okay.
So I thought I'd enter a ruck, which was a bit of a mysterious area for me, and then
stay out of them, mate. Stay out of
them.
them.
Safe to say I won't be going back. Yeah.
First and final ruck, was it?
Yeah.
Tried to get in and over that ball for a steal. I think I've had maybe one in my entire career. Stolen pretty clean. Celebrated after the match, actually.
Yeah.
No, good stuff, mate. But how's that then? I don't know if you've listened to the podcast before, but we speak to people quite a bit about their travels abroad with rugby. And you've obviously spent quite a few years in Italy now. I think calculating this must be coming up to your 4th or 5th year. How's it been? How's, just touching on that point, you mentioned you were injured last season. How is it being injured? Because obviously you're in a country where it's not your first language, so communication is quite key when you've got injuries. Is that something that is hard to manage?
For me being here, I didn't find that it was. We've got physios that speak good English, and we've got multiple doctors that are obviously specific professionals in their field. A lot of them speak good enough English that if you've got a problem with whatever it is, you can speak to them. But I've never had any problems trying to get anything across. The go-to here is, well, specifically for us, is straight in for a scan, straight into to see if anything is the problem. So just as an example, when I did that hamstring, that was on I I think that was a Friday night. The Saturday morning at 8 o'clock, I was in having an ultrasound, and then I think nothing showed up on that. And then it was the Sunday morning that I was then in on another scan. So yeah, that's kind of their go-to is straight into technology basically and find the problem. And
How good's that? So that's a pretty quick turnaround because I know
very
a lot of clubs. I've got guys here in Spain that wait 2 to 3 weeks to even get
yeah,
an MRI done on something
yeah,
which at times could be dealt with a bit quicker.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, that's great to have that sort of confidence in the system. Then it sounds like you've got and
yeah.
no problems at all. And how's your Italian language then? Or they're
Uh,
such good English speakers you don't even need to?
well, yeah, I was about to say that. The thing is, yeah, the majority of our squad are really good English speakers. Coach, yeah, his English is good.
Yeah.
Physios, like I said, yeah, everyone that I deal with, yeah, is good
What
enough.
about
But yeah, my Italians, I can understand pretty much everything that's going on. It probably helps a lot more because obviously if you're in a video meeting, you've got stuff on the screen, so you can put two and two together because you know that they're not going to be talking about something that's completely opposite to what's being shown anyway. So you
yeah
start to pick up more bits and pieces, and sometimes do a bit of homework when I get back, just to, if there's a few phrases or something I didn't quite understand, then just try and
yeah
get
nice.
that nailed down as well. But yeah.
Would you say you've made like an extra effort to get immersed in the Italian culture? I
Yeah,
would I
I would say so. Yeah. I think definitely when I first arrived here, we had a really good group um, for off the field. So that definitely helped. Um, Guys that were willing to go out of their way to put something on for the rest of the boys, whether it be find somewhere new to eat and make sure that, they would look after us well, or if it was finding somewhere to go after the games or whatever it was. So it's easier to then fit into a culture where that's become the norm of always staying together. And obviously you learn about different things where different boys are from. So obviously you've got a huge area across Italy that we've got lads from all over. So it's good speaking to them and seeing what their points of view are about sometimes when we go out to eat or whatever we're drinking or whatever it is. It's always good to learn something. So yeah, it's been really
awesome.
good.
You're in Padova, obviously. My son was born in Padova, actually,
He
as you
was
probably know.
yeah, yeah.
He well, it's actually a really beautiful city from when I went there. How does it compare to when you were in San Donar near Venice? Do you like it more, or is it's a bit different?
Um, Very different because it's such a um, like you say, it's a city and it's a student city as well. So there's a lot going on. Getting in and out of the city as well is quite easy. Um, so it's quite easy to drive in, or there's a tram that's not too far from us. So getting that in, which stops outside the club, so things like that. So transport's easy to get in. But yeah, there's always a lot going on. The population's much bigger than Sandanar, so yeah,
But
you
you're
can
further
always
away from the beach, aren't you?
a little bit further, yeah, yeah. So probably an extra 15-20 minutes,
Okay,
but
not too.
probably a similar distance to Venice.
Yeah.
Um, Again, probably half an hour, 45 minutes ish.
Alright,
So
that's nice.
yeah,
That's nice. So tell me, you've got family out there or girlfriend, wife?
yeah.
I
So
know
Tanya's
this,
still
but
here.
just
Yeah,
for the listeners.
yeah. So girlfriend's living here. So she's working as a babysitter every afternoon.
Nice.
And then usually our training schedule is when it's hotter, we start earlier in the morning. And then now, because we share our facility with the Padova University, um, so we let them use part of the facility first, and then we come in after them. So training now is usually around 10-ish, depending on if we've got meetings or whatever. So yeah. And then
No,
family and friends try and get over as much as they can. So mum and dad are coming back out in 2 weeks.
nice.
So
And
yeah.
you touched on sharing the installations with the university.
Yeah.
Is that, are they also a rugby team, or is Padova Club connected to the university in any way, or is it just like
Not that
within?
I know of in terms of a sporting connection anyway. The only connection that I know of is just through the club, that they come and use the gym and the
Yeah.
like the meeting room that we have to use a projector and things like that. But other than that, that's the only connection that I'm aware of.
So what style of rugby have they got you playing at Padova, and how does it compare to when you were back in England? And how does the structure, I guess, of the club compare? You weren't just in England; you were also in Scotland, weren't you, playing?
Scotland, yeah, yeah. I think I noticed the biggest difference changing from Scotland to Italy, probably because it was the time of year that I'd done it as well. So it was starting to get a little bit warmer here. Obviously, it was still quite cold in Scotland. So I was used to playing a very forward dominated game and um, kicking quite a lot. Whereas when I arrived here,
Ideal.
it was, yeah, it was ball in hand a lot more and trying to find space. I think, especially in, or as you know, the league that I'm in, defenses are naturally, I think, quite tight. Um, so there is a lot of space to move the ball, which is obviously good being an attacker.
Yeah.
Um, and then from a defensive point of view, it then makes the game a lot harder because you're having to work more to fill the field. Um, but I still remember the first game I played, we scored, um, and the guy who was bringing on the tee for me to kick, I told him to slow down because I was so out of breath from the phase of play. I just obviously wasn't used to the speed, so I told him just to slow down a bit, and I made sure I used the whole time that I had from the referee to take a drink and take it in that I'd arrived in a fast paced environment that was, but yeah, love it. So
Nice. And the top 10, the now top 10 seems
now
to be
top 10, yeah.
getting more and more professional. They've just introduced TMOs as well. How's that been?
Yeah. It's been good, but similar to when VAR was first brought into football, there's still some people that are very anti TMO because they think it slows the game down, and which some games it has. But then again, I would rather the game be slower and the right decision be made.
Yeah.
Um, because I'm sure, as many people know, Italians can be very hot-headed, and some decisions you think you're very unsure of the route they've taken to get to that decision. So having a TMO is I think it's beneficial.
Nice. I think the lad that came on that played for Rovigo mentioned that Padova were thinking about entering as a franchise to
Yeah,
similar to Treviso and Zebra have done in the
yeah,
URC.
yeah.
Um, is that still something that's on the table? Is that even something that's discussed with players, or is it all hush hush and you don't really know what's going on there?
Um, so last year, Zebre had a contract with Parma Council that was up for renewal. And they said at the beginning of last year, they were saying that until for another 2 seasons, they would participate in the URC. After
Yeah.
that, it's then up to the federation's decision if they want Zebre to carry on, because Zebre is solely funded by the Italian Federation.
Okay.
So Benetton and Zebre get the equal amount of money. The only difference with Benetton is that the sponsors' money that comes in on top of that
Yeah.
basically doubles their wage bill, whereas Zebre don't really have that luxury.
Yeah.
So they said that they would participate for another 2 years. And our president then came in and said the money, I think it's around 4.5 million that the federation put in. He said, I will put that in of my own money, and the federation can keep theirs basically. So he said, I've got just over 20 million that I'm willing to put in over the first 5 years. So basically, the offer's there if you want to take it up.
I think a
Um,
few Premiership clubs could do with that kind of money
well,
right now flying
yeah,
about, couldn't they?
yeah, definitely. And then last year, I think Zebre decided that, for these next few years, they would still give it a real good crack, and they would. I think they changed a few personnel higher up, director type roles. Um,
Seems like they've
so
started the year pretty well as well in the
yeah, they've done
URC.
really well. And I think what they've similar to like the film Moneyball, similar situation. They've kind of cherry picked a few guys from places that might not necessarily have been having much game time, and they've seen something in them that that they believe that they can work with over there, and they've been playing some really really good rugby. So
Yeah,
fair play to them.
yeah, awesome. Are you keen for Padova to enter into that world of the URC and things like that? I know there are some other competitions that sound like they might be starting up. There's a competition my team plays in. I'm currently, well, I was last year. I'm currently injured, but when I'm fit, hopefully I'll be representing the Iberians, which is a new franchise in Spain that plays in the European Super Cup. I'm not sure if you've
Right,
heard of
I
it, but
have heard
it's
of it. Yeah, yeah,
so it's for second tier nations essentially. But I think they were speaking about trying to get in two Italian teams for next year. I'm not sure if
right.
there's been any sniffs around Padova about that one. They're probably more focused
Well,
on the first tier URC, I imagine.
it could be similar to, I don't know whether you would have seen it. You probably did. You know how the Champions Cup and the Challenge Cup run across Europe.
Yeah,
Well, I think it is in that there's two spaces in, I think it's the Challenge Cup,
yeah,
um, that they leave. It might even be three spaces, which were one was open to a Europe, the winner of a like a European playoff. Sometimes I think it was a
yes, I remember
Romanian
that in the
team or
past. Yeah,
something.
yeah, yeah,
And then there'd be the top two from the top 10 who would then enter in. So Calvisano, I think 2 years ago played Leicester home and away,
yeah,
and a
yeah. I
few
remember
other.
that.
I think they played Pau at home and away, obviously as well.
Yeah.
Um,
But I mean, for the Italian teams, it's a bit of a similar story, isn't it, to the Six Nations, where they're not really gonna win a
yeah,
game, and
yeah,
for them it probably would be quite a good thing to enter into like the second tier
yeah,
European competition. Maybe I
yeah,
don't mean
definitely.
second tier. It's probably suggests it's third tier, but it's below Challenge Cup level. There used to
Yeah,
be that third level of qualifying for the Challenge Cup, I think,
yeah,
but now these kind of the nations that might have been in that competition before, the Spanish, the Portuguese, the well, it's going to be the Germans from next year, but at the moment the Dutch, Belgium team, and who else? You got a couple of Russian teams, but they're now chucked out for
yeah,
political reasons. They might be back in next year. You got a Romanian team, and you've got two Georgian teams and an Israeli team now, the Tel Aviv Heat, which is a new franchise. And then they've
yeah.
suggested that sort of competition of eight might be extended to 16 teams next year. And I heard that two Italian teams were in
Right.
talks to enter, so that'd be interesting to see. It could be a good thing
Yeah,
for Italian rugby.
definitely.
Probably would get a few wins in European competition.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah, yeah.
Nice. So that's Padova's story. Tell us a bit about your time in Scotland, because you're not
Yep.
Scottish, are you?
I'm Scottish qualified
Okay.
through my dad. Yeah. So I moved up there through a family friend. To be honest, I didn't know anything about Scottish rugby. Um, I'd never really watched any club rugby or knew anything about the level that they had, obviously under Warriors and Edinburgh. Got a call from a club president up there, and he invited me and mum and dad up to go and watch a game, and that's what we did. Looked after us really well. Decided that it would be a good move to go up there. Um, can't speak highly enough of my time there. Absolutely loved it.
Yeah,
But you know, a few changes happened, like they do everywhere. New coach came in, a few different players. Dynamic changed a little bit, and I just thought I'll keep an eye open elsewhere. Um, and yeah, opportunity came up, and then that was how I left. But yeah, absolutely loved it there, and definitely the style of play I think is different there to here,
yeah.
but also very similar in a lot of ways as well.
Have you had any calls from your? You've obviously had a really successful time in Italy. Have you had any calls to potentially move back to one of the franchises up in Scotland? Maybe push for an
Um,
international career up there.
well, there was a bit of back and forward with Edinburgh last year, but that never really went anywhere. Um, I think my Italian agent is quite keen for me to stay here
Yeah.
because I've got another. Well, it'll be 12 months in January that I'd then be Italian qualified. So I think he's got his eyes on that.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So, but we'll
So
see.
Six Nations is on the horizon then potentially with Italy.
Possibly. Yeah. Yeah.
What about
Yeah.
is obviously it's quite a different kettle of fish playing for Padova in the top 10 than it might be for playing for one of the two
Yeah.
teams, Zebre and Treviso.
Yeah.
Um, what's your thoughts on or how difficult is it as a foreign player to get an opportunity in one of those teams?
Um,
I know. I just say that because I know that Italy's been constantly reducing the number of foreign players
yeah.
per team. I remember in my last year there, they'd reduced it to 3 players per squad, three
Yeah.
foreign players per squad, and then the
Yeah.
year after I left, they then changed the rules slightly to allow Italian, so to I think to align with the World Rugby rules of if you qualify for Italy,
Yeah.
so that means if you've got an Italian grandparent, you can play for a top 10 side, which wasn't the case before. You had to be, I think, trained and developed in an Italian team to be able to
Yeah.
qualify as Italian. But now that's changed, and I think there was a massive influx of Argentinians as a result of that change of rule into the league.
Yeah.
Is that the case at Padova as well? Is there?
So we brought in three Argentinians this year.
Yeah.
But one team has decided to bring in 26. Um,
No way.
which yeah, and an Argentinian head coach and physio. Um, so
What team's that? Name and
Viadana,
shame. Oh
Viadana.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
Nice.
yeah, they've
26.
yeah,
Is that for real or is that an
26. That is
exaggeration?
for real. Yeah, no, that is for real. Yeah.
So what about the Italian lads, local Italian lads?
Um, I think the coach was planning to move on, so I think a lot of the players have decided to go with him.
Okay.
Um, Not necessarily with him to wherever he's gone to, but just to leave the club. And I think now they're in a bit of a situation where I was trying to think about this the other day. Maybe you know more than me about the eligibility. I think what happened over the summer is they've signed these guys,
Yeah.
and the Italian Federation have decided that if you to be qualified as an Italian in the league, you
Yeah.
have to be a holder of an Italian passport, not just be Italian qualified.
Right.
So I think what has happened is 95% of these guys that have come across are Italian qualified through parent,
Grandparents. Yeah.
grandparent, whatever it is, but they don't hold an Italian passport.
Right.
So now I think they're in a bit of a situation as to what to do about this rule, whether there
Oh,
can be
so did they not
something.
specify that before? Have they recently added that stipulation
I
about the
as
passports?
as far as I'm aware, yes, it was changed not so long ago, and I think the majority of these players had already been brought in.
Oh my god! So
Um,
what they'll probably do is allow them to kind of break their new ruling for a year. I imagine.
Possibly, yeah, yeah.
Call
So
Viadana,
it
call Viadana Jaguares,
well,
or the
that's what,
Argentina 15.
yeah, that's what we are calling them.
Is it?
Yeah. So similar thing happened with Rovigo actually last year. Is they had a few foreigners leave, and I
Yeah,
think they had one who was still there, and they brought another 4 or 5 in. But at the same time, the league reduced the amount of foreign players you could have in your match day 23 to 3. And they
that's
turned
right.
around and said, hang on, you've now changed this rule and we've just bought 4 extra foreigners or however many it
Oh,
was.
so they'd already
So
signed the players.
they'd already signed them. Yeah. So the federation then turned around and said that they'll change it back to 4.
Yeah,
And that's what it's remained at again for this year. So
interesting. So there's clearly the Italian Federation is quite haphazard
yeah,
with their new regulations that they
yeah,
decide to input. So
yeah,
that makes no sense to not tell the clubs when in advance. Like, no, they just suddenly decide. I know in Italy, it's I've spoken about it before about the kind of cycle of foreign players playing in foreign leagues. So, for example, in my theory is that it goes in cycles, and you start off with let's say 7 foreign players are allowed to play in an Italian team, for example. Then, depending on how the rugby's going, the international rugby or the club rugby, you might get people complaining there's too many foreign players, we need to reduce the numbers so that Italian boys can come through. So they reduce it year by year, comes down to sort of 3, 4 players. This was the case as well for me when I first moved out to Spain. And then what happens is the level of the rugby locally in the domestic league reduces because there's not as many foreign players. And I think those guys that once brought the level and brought the local players around them sort of up to their level or
mm,
upper level, they then there's not as many as them, as many of them. So then the cycle does a full 360 and they suddenly go, right, we're not going to limit at all. And so they sort of it's a massive free for all, and then the cycle starts again and the numbers reduce down, and it's sort of just
yeah,
like a self-fulfilling prophecy at the end of the day that they're never going to be happy one way or the other. I'm surprised that the Italian Federation has kept things the same for 2 years, to be honest. Probably
yeah,
because of their own mistakes.
yeah. Well, it'd be interesting to see um, what happens over the next kind of 12 months. As you know, they finished the Six Nations strongly, beating Wales, and then they had a very hit and miss summer.
Yeah.
Um, and then, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they do about foreigners and eligibility because I know that there's probably off the top of my head, roughly 4 or 5 guys there that have been playing or played throughout the Six Nations that qualified under residency ruling. Whether there's going to be more of those guys that qualify this year or even into the year after, hint, hint, Italian Federation, um, and see what they do with those guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, very interested to see how they try and integrate those guys in and then what they then decide to do with the teams, for example, in the top 10, if they try to reduce the foreign players or increase it again. We'll
Yeah.
see.
What's your hopes for this season then? On team level, obviously, I assume it's win the title, but personal level?
Top point scorer is always one that is probably one of the first things I always write down. Yeah, and my kick percentage, that's kind of something that the club are expecting of me, and I expect of myself anyway. Um,
What do you set the bar at for your kick percentage?
Above 85, I'd be happy at.
That's
Um,
very good going. I've got to say,
yeah,
as a kicker myself, that
yeah,
is a very, very accurate kick
yeah,
percentage.
Yeah.
I don't think.
So
I don't think I've ever been above 85% across my entire career. So you're doing well there, mate. What were you at
yeah.
last year?
Um, I think I might have scraped into 86.
All right, don't show off. Right, let's move on to the
Uh,
next thing.
yeah, yeah.
Um, no, that's class, mate. That is some serious. Did you dedicate a lot of time when you were younger to kicking? How did you develop your?
Yeah. To be honest, I think it was more um, not wasting time, but just finding something to do. My old man at the time, when I was a lot younger, was a director of rugby at my local club. So there was a
What club
lot of
was
things
that?
that Wyndham, so near Norwich in Norfolk.
Yeah, nice.
So he was a director there for a long time. And when I was younger, there was a lot of things that he would be doing that I couldn't necessarily be involved in, although I thought I could be. Um,
Yeah,
Meetings or coaching sessions with older guys. So um, yeah, but he spent a lot of time with me as well, and not um, just kicking at the post. It was a lot of actually working on a technique to kick the ball as well.
yeah.
Um, yeah, and then just kind of found a love for it really, and yeah, once you start improving at something, you obviously want to carry on, and then yeah, that just carried on through the age groups.
I might have to put a video up on the YouTube of your kicking technique. I think you scored one from the corner, didn't you, in the final last year?
Yeah, that was against Ravigo. Yeah,
Nice.
last minute.
Humble.
Yeah,
Like it.
yeah.
Too humble, mate. Last minute. Might have been last minute.
Clock was in the red. Yeah,
Nicely done. Was it to win it? It was already
that was
won.
to win it. Yeah,
It
no, it
was
was
to
to win
win
it. Was
it.
it?
It was
Yeah,
to
yeah,
win the title.
yeah. Oh, not to
Don't.
win the title, but to win the derby. Yeah,
Oh yeah. Don't worry. Don't mind me. Just winning
yeah,
derbies last minute. What about
yeah,
your drop goal? Because I know you've got a long kick. You can sort of slot
yeah,
it from 55 probably with
yeah.
consummate ease. And dropping goals from back there at 15. You ever?
I mean, our coach here is very, very into it, especially now with goal line dropouts as well. He said,
Yeah.
if you feel it's on, have a
Have
go.
a go, son.
Um, I don't think I have as yet, whilst I've been here, but you never know. Tomorrow's the start of the championship, so
Oh,
I
nice. Who
might
have you
have
got?
might have you in the back of my head now, thinking score a long range droppy.
You've got to, mate.
Yeah,
It's the only way. It's the only
yeah,
way forward. Scoring long range droppies. That's pretty much how I've built my entire career.
yeah, and chipping them over from the 22.
Yeah, that's it. Par
Yeah,
nine. Not even par nine. Pitching wedge.
yeah.
Um, Mate. So I was going to ask finally, who have you got tomorrow then?
Mogliano.
Mogliano. What are we thinking?
Yeah.
They're in a bit of trouble, were they?
They were a little bit. They're one of those teams that if you let them do what they want to do, they'll kind of bring you down to their level. But if you can overpower them a little bit, then you should be all right. So I'm backing us for a comfortable start of the season home win.
Nice, comfortable W. That's
Yeah,
awesome, mate. Well, listen, I wish you all the best for the season.
thank you.
Um, Hope you have a good one. Keep your kicking percentage obviously above
Yeah,
85%. That's key.
yeah,
And obviously injury free. And yeah, let's see what happens. Hopefully we'll be seeing you in the Six Nations soon enough,
yeah.
mate. Who
Hopefully,
knows
yeah.
which blue you'll be wearing though.
Yeah.
Awesome,
Never
Scotty.
know.
Thanks for your time. Appreciate
Thanks,
you.
mate.
The
Yeah.
episode.
Thanks, buddy.
Speak to you soon. Thanks for listening, guys, and I hope you enjoyed the episode. Don't forget to subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And to listen to all our episodes and much, much more, visit us at rugbyabroad.com.